Let's get ready to rumble!
Yeah, Zab Judah. Will the real Zab Judah please stand up? Yeah, I think he stood up on Saturday for definite. And after watching his punch-perfect performance against Vernon Paris on Saturday, he inspired me to make a video about elder fighters who a lot of us write off. Like I wrote Zab off, no joke, I wrote him off. But they still have that one good fight, or maybe have 2 or 3 good fights in them left. So Zab sets off the list with his 9th round TKO over Paris. And he looked brilliant. He looked like he could have boxed on glass in his bare foot and not got cut. His footwork was just beautiful, man. The straight left was just lovely, you know what I mean? And he's a great boxer to watch when he puts it all together. And this is going to either work 2 ways for Paris. That might just shell shock him so bad about the realities of elite boxing. Or it might just focus his energies and he'll come back stronger. We'll have to see. The next boxer I had on the list was Grady Brewer for his performance against Fernando Guerrero. 16-year age gap between them. You know what I mean? Brewer's 42 years of age now. Guerrero is about 26. Guerrero seemed to have underestimated Grady, and he seemed to have came in a little unprepared for a fierce battle. And Brewer basically just outmanned him. TKO'd him in 4 rounds for the NABF belt. Great result. George Foreman versus Michael Moorer in the early 90s for the World Championship at heavyweight. 17-year age gap. Foreman was born in 1949 and Moorer was born in 1967. Foreman won by a KO in the 10th round and became the oldest man ever to win the heavyweight championship of the world. Foreman was way behind on points. Moorer, behind the southpaw right, was piling up points and hitting George fairly easy. George did have his moments, but no one could have forecasted the events that took place in the 10th round when Foreman landed a left jab and then a straight right and closed the show. Hopkins versus Pavelec. Bernard was born in 1965. Kelly Pavelec was born in 1982, making it a 17-year age gap. Hopkins ran out a 12 rounds points winner, fairly convincingly and fairly easily, beating Kelly in every aspect of the game, basically. He schooled him. Certain parts of the media like to make a big deal of it that Pavelec was fighting out of his natural weight division. But then again, so was Bernard. He started as a middleweight, just like Pavelec did as well. So that makes no sense at all. Larry Holmes versus Marvis Frazier. Frazier is Joe Frazier's son. Now, a lot of people might not know, but Frazier was a very good amateur heavyweight. Very, very good. And although he wasn't the betting favorite to beat Larry, a lot of people thought that he could outspeed him and possibly take a points decision. And he came out very confident in Marvis. He came out very confident. A lot of movement and a lot of head movement, and he really was going to try and use the speed to give Holmes hell. But Holmes stayed composed and he timed the right hand perfectly in the first round. And he caught Marvis square on the jaw, buckled his legs, and he sort of went down and sprung backwards. And he got knocked down. He got back up, and then Holmes just pounded him on the ropes. And the referee had to stop it. First round TKO. With Holmes being born in 1949 and Marvis Frazier born in 1960. The heavyweight championship of the world was at stake. In the year of 1983, Roberto Duran was still in a transitional period of his career. where he's trying to redeem himself from the Nomads fight, as it's notoriously known as, against Sugar Ray Leonard. And he did redeem himself very well. And he fought Davey Moore, and that's the fight we're covering now. Davey Moore was a up-and-coming fighter who won the WBA belt, undefeated, very good fighter, two-handed puncher, had power. He made the cover of the Ring magazine. He was the talk of the town at the time. And he was 8 years Duran's junior. And he was expected to beat Duran because, like I said, Duran was still in this phase of his career where he was trying to make amends for quitting against Sugar Ray Leonard. But Duran was having none of that. And it was on his birthday the fight took place. And I remember the fight was like a crazy crowd, you know what I mean? The crowd was just really amped up. Hot atmosphere, you could just feel the steam coming through the television. And Duran just didn't let up on the attack, man. He just pounded Davey Moore, roughed him up, used the experience, you know, out-punched him, out-boxed him. He just did whatever was necessary to get the win. And he floored Davey. I remember he floored him. And he eventually stopped him on his feet. And the next fight is also from the early to mid-80s. I love that period, man. It's just when I started getting into watching a whole heap of boxing, you know what I mean? Love that period. And this fight is Alexis Arguello versus Ray Mancini. Mancini was 9 years Alexis's junior. He had 20 wins, 15 KOs. Arguello had well over 70-odd bouts and 50-plus KOs and was already a legend in the game. And Mancini was a very hungry challenger, and he tried his best. He cried his heart out, man, and he pushed Arguello as hard as he could. And he got knocked out in the 14th round. The WBC lightweight championship was at stake. Now, this is the only fighter on the list who wasn't unbeaten when challenging a veteran. And this fighter was Michael Watson, when he challenged Mike McCallum for his WBA middleweight championship. Watson went as hard as he could. He went really hard, man. Like, you know, McCallum had to be at his best on that night. And he was. He was on top form, you know. And Watson, just like Mancini, pushed him hard. He pushed him hard. But McCallum just stayed a step ahead all the way through. And he closed the show in the 11th. Brutal KO. Brutal KO. There was a 9-year gap between the two men. Watson was, I guess, in his early 20s, and McCallum was way in his 30s by this time. Now, for some reason, the box record just treating me bad. And it's asked me to log in, and when I'm trying to log in, it won't let me log in. So I'm just trying to remember the years of a lot of these fights. And I think McCallum and Watson was about 88, 87, 88. And then we go to Muhammad Ali, born in 1942, who took on George Foreman, who was born in 1949. And this fight, I believe, took place in 1974 in Zaire, the first heavyweight championship to be held in Africa, the Rumble in the Jungle. You know? People wasn't just predicting Ali to lose. They was thinking that Foreman could actually kill this guy, because Foreman was punching that hard. I mean, uppercuts were lifting certain opponents off the ground, you know? It was brutal. I mean, if Foreman isn't the hardest heavyweight puncher ever, he must be in the top 3. I don't know how you want to switch around the top slots or what order you want to put them in. Shavers, Foreman, Dempsey, Tyson, Marciano, Lewis, Liston, whatever. George has got to be up there. And that's my word. I mean, there was people in Ali's camp who didn't think Ali could win, and he was questioning them. What, you don't think I can win? You know what I mean? And there was genuine concern about Ali's health. But, you know, the reason elite fighters are elite fighters, they do things that good fighters can't do, you know? And common wisdom was saying that Ali had to use his feet and stay out of range. But he couldn't do that no more. Especially after the prison term for avoiding the draft. You know, that robbed him of his vital years. He couldn't move like he used to move against Liston, Zora Foley, Big Cat Williams. He couldn't do that no more. You know, so he improvised the rope-a-dope, you know, where he was just taking a lot of Foreman shots in the forearms and showing this amazing ability to take punishment, you know, which he shouldn't have really did, but he did what he had to do to get the victory, and he KO'd Foreman in 8 rounds, and it still remains one of the biggest upsets ever in boxing history. Then we have Muhammad Ali again, this time against Leon Spinks, who was born in 1953, which would make him 11 years younger than Ali. Now, Spinks already took the championship from Ali in their previous fight. Spinks only had about 7 fights behind him, challenging for a heavyweight championship. I think only Pete Radmacher, who challenged Floyd Patterson, had less bouts than that, challenging for such a prestigious title. But this time, Ali was focused, he was well conditioned, and he knew what he had to do. He basically tied Spinks up when the action got close, because that's where Spinks did his best work, and basically just laid the jab on him. And surprisingly, he stayed on his toes for a lot of the bout and ran out a deserved winner. And last but not least, Sugar Ray Robinson, who took on Gene Fullmer in 1957 for the middleweight title. Now, just like Spinks in his previous bout before losing to Ali, Fullmer took Sugar Ray Robinson's title on points. So obviously, Ray was seeking revenge now. And these guys fought a few times, maybe 3 or 4 times, all hard contested bouts. And this one was no different. Except this is the fight where Ray's credited to have thrown the best left hook ever in the history of the sport. There's no bias here when I say it probably is the best left hook you'll see. It has everything on it. It's short, it's fast, and it's disguised. And it had that old kung fu adage where they use your strength against you, because Fullmer was trying to walk Ray down and stalk him. And he was just walking forward like he really wanted to just cut the ring off on Ray. And he just couldn't see that punch. You can't block them punches. You know, you just can't. You can't. There's nothing you can do to block a punch like that. It's perfectly delivered, you know, and it just ended the fight right there and then. And Fullmer's momentum coming forward added to the fact that the motion of the punch was like a whip getting cracked. Just psh, you know, it was just like, wow. It's so good that if I keep trying to find superlatives to describe it, I'm going to sound corny. So my advice is go on YouTube, type in Sugar Ray Robinson, Gene Fullmer 2, and you'll see what you have to see. I think that bout made Ray a 3-time champion. I think it did. You know, BoxRec makes me look good, and not being able to access it, you know what I mean, it's degenerating my steez, you know what I mean? I don't appreciate that. If I say it, go. And there's Vince Phillips. There's only 6 years age difference in this one, when he took out Costa Zoo and took his IBF light welterweight belt with a 10th round KO. And I don't know if a 6-year gap is long enough to really qualify him on the list, so I'll give that honorable mention. I think Buster Douglas was about 6 years older than Tyson when he took him out. So that's another honorable mention. Alongside Jersey Joe Walcott, who at 37 years of age took out the 31-year-old champion Ezra Charles to win the heavyweight championship of the world. But I was more looking at an 8, 9, 10, 15-year gap between the two fighters to make the criteria for the list. And I'm going to redo this video at a later date, actually. I think I can cover it a bit better. But that's my list anyway, of old fighters who we wrote off, who still had a good fight left in them, and were able to turn back the clock and bring some magic to the table. So with that, I'm going to say this is Boxing Beats and Rhymes saying, peace out.